I can't stand that kid. He's a menace.
A man named Wilson comes out of his house to pick up the newspaper in his front garden. As he's about to go back inside, he suddenly hears a rumbling sound and realizes that a troublesome boy named Dennis is already coming to his house. Wilson seems to have gotten tired of Dennis, and he quickly runs into the house and puts some pill bottles on top of his bedside drawer to make it look like he's sick. He also gets into bed and pretends to be asleep. Almost immediately, Dennis enters the house and starts looking for Wilson. He eventually finds Wilson in his room, and even though he sees that the old man is sleeping, he still tries to confirm this by touching Wilson's face and listening to his heartbeat. After a while, Dennis says that Wilson likely has a fever and that he'll give him an aspirin. As Dennis tries to open the container, the lid happens to be stuck, and while trying to force it open, he accidentally pours all the pills on the ground. Wilson looks disappointed by this, but he still continues pretending to be asleep.
Mr. Wilson.
Dennis then tries to put the aspirin in Wilson's mouth, but Wilson tightens his lip and prevents him from doing this. Dennis seems confused by this, but he decides to use his slingshot to shoot the aspirin into Wilson's mouth. As Wilson pretends to snore, he slightly opens his mouth, and Dennis shoots the aspirin into it. Wilson nearly chokes as it enters his mouth, and Dennis quickly leaves the house and heads home. When he gets there, his parents, Alice and Henry, ask where he's coming from, and he says that he went to see Wilson. As he also mentions that Wilson is very sick, Henry looks worried and asks if his son didn't disturb their neighbor. Dennis says he only gave Wilson an aspirin, but his dad tells him to stop going to people's houses in the morning. Dennis says it's the only time he can be sure that they'll be at home, but his dad still insists. Almost immediately, Alice decides to call Wilson to ask how he's feeling. Just as the call goes through, Wilson insults Alice and complains about what Dennis did before leaving his house. Alice looks embarrassed by this, and she tells Wilson that she'll talk to her son. After the call ends, Alice scolds Dennis for shooting an aspirin into Wilson's mouth.
Did you shoot an aspirin into Mr. Wilson's mouth?
Dennis says he didn't want to get bitten by Wilson's fake teeth, but his parents still don't look happy about what he did. After Henry takes away his slingshot, Alice says that she's taking Wilson to the house of a woman named Mrs. Wade. Dennis says he doesn't want to go there because that's where one of his wicked classmates, Margaret, lives. Alice says she has already made arrangements with Mrs. Wade for him to stay at her house while she and Henry head to work. She adds that Dennis can't spend the summer unsupervised, but he mentions that he doesn't mind going back to school if it means staying away from Margaret's house. However, Henry says he doesn't want any arguments because Alice has already made plans with Mrs. Wade. Shortly after, as Henry heads outside, he sees Wilson and apologizes for what happened earlier. Wilson then tells Henry that he needs to talk to his son and teach him how to behave. Henry says he'll make sure Dennis doesn't come to his house anymore, but Wilson tells him not to say it like that because it might make people think of him as a child hater. Henry still mentions that he'll keep Dennis away from Wilson's house, but Wilson doesn't seem pleased with his tone. After Henry leaves, Wilson's wife, Martha, asks who he was arguing with.
Who are you shouting at?
And he mentions that he was just telling their neighbor that Dennis cannot continue to do as he pleases. Martha says that Dennis is just a boy, but Wilson insists that he's a menace. After this, Martha tells her husband to come inside to have his breakfast because they'll soon have to go to their garden club meeting. Wilson then mentions that today is supposed to be an important day for him, but that Dennis has already gotten him pissed. As he says that he doesn't know if he'll enjoy his moment of triumph, Martha tells him not to get his hopes up, because there are other gardens in the town that can be chosen to host the club's summer party. Wilson doesn't believe this, and he tells Martha that no other garden has a plant that has been nurtured for 40 years. As he shows Martha the plant, he talks about how he has waited for 40 years to see it blossom. He also mentions that the plant is due to open and wither on the day of the party. Elsewhere, Alice takes Dennis to Mrs. Wade's house, but she notices that her son still isn't happy about going there. Alice then tries to make Dennis understand that she has to work.
A lot of moms work.
Dennis seems bothered that his friend Joey might come to their house when he's away, but Alice tells him that Joey is already at Mrs. Wade's house. Dennis looks relieved by this, but when his mom gets to Mrs. Wade's house, he still seems reluctant to go inside. Shortly after, Dennis and Joey look disappointed that there's nothing to do at the house. As they mention that they'll soon leave to continue building their fort, Margaret says they can't go without her because she'll have to tell on them. Even though the boys don't like her, they eventually take her to a tree house, which they plan to remodel into a fort. When they get there, Margaret says she'll be the decorator and that she'll make sure the fort has a baby room and some other nice things. The boys don't like her idea because forts don't usually have the things she's suggesting. However, Margaret imposes her ideas on them and says that they won't be making a fort anymore because she wants to turn the place into a nice house. Elsewhere, at the garden club meeting, Wilson's garden is chosen as the venue for the summer party. He looks happy about this, and everyone applauds him.
Wilson!
Later that night, while the kids in the neighborhood are playing hide and seek, Wilson sits outside with Martha and talks about how he used to be very good at the game. Martha finds this surprising, but Wilson insists that he was good. As he then watches the kids, he notices that Dennis has teamed up with another boy to help him find other people's hiding spots. Wilson says that Dennis is cheating, and he sends the other boy home by lying to him that his dad is going to the ice cream store. After the boy leaves, Wilson says that the game is now fair, but Martha seems disappointed that her husband lied to the other boy. She says that he won't be happy when he gets home and finds out that Wilson lied to him. Wilson doesn't seem bothered about this, and he tells Martha that it will be a good lesson for the boy. Elsewhere, a bandit named Switchblade Sam jumps off a train and looks excited to see the beautiful town up ahead. The next day at work, Alice makes a case for a toy store to be located in one of her company's malls. As she talks about how her visits to the mall with her son have helped her with the plan, one of her bosses tells her to stop using her personal examples. Alice looks disappointed by this, but she still continues the presentation with another example.
Could you spare us the family anecdotes, please?
Elsewhere, Dennis, Joey, and Margaret head to the tree house to start making changes to the place. While they're at it, Switchblade Sam sees Margaret's expensive doll at the bottom of the tree house. He then steals it and runs away before anyone sees him. Shortly after, Margaret realizes that her doll is missing, and she accuses the boys of stealing it. Dennis and Joey deny this, and Margaret starts wondering if someone else stole the doll. Dennis says it's just a doll, but Margaret mentions that it's a very expensive antique. Shortly after, Sam heads into the town and steals an apple from a baby. As he also sees a box of jewelry inside someone's house, he steals it. A while later, Dennis accidentally spills some paint in the garage at his house. He then gets a vacuum cleaner and uses it to remove the paint from the floor. Meanwhile, a babysitter named Polly arrives at the house just as Henry is leaving for work. After Dennis is done cleaning the paint, he brings out the vacuum cleaner and tries to clear out the paint that got sucked in. While he's at it, he accidentally shoots a glob of paint into Wilson's barbecue grill. Wilson doesn't see this when it happens, and Dennis just runs into the house. After a while, Wilson serves the grilled chicken and eventually realizes that it tastes of paint and wood.
Tastes funny.
Martha then packs up the food and suggests eating something else. As she leaves the table, Wilson thinks about the chicken and wonders if Dennis had something to do with it. Meanwhile, Polly's boyfriend, Mickey, arrives at the house to see her, and Dennis lets him in. Later that night, Martha sees Wilson going to Dennis's house, and she asks what he's doing. Wilson then says that he has seen Dennis fooling around with paint, and that he wants to confirm that he's responsible for what happened to his chicken. Martha thinks Wilson is taking things too far, and she mentions that Dennis is just a boy. Wilson still insists on going there, and he eventually heads into the garage. Meanwhile, Dennis decides to mess around with Polly and Mickey by ringing the doorbell repeatedly. Polly and Mickey get pissed by this, but they are unaware that Dennis is the one ringing the doorbell. Almost immediately, Mickey tapes a thumbtack to the doorbell and heads back inside to work on a plan to pour some flour and water on the person who is disturbing regarding him and Polly. Back in the garage, Wilson finds the vacuum cleaner and realizes that there's paint inside. As he then turns it on, the vacuum cleaner sucks in a golf ball, which eventually hits Wilson in the butt. This leaves him in pain, and he leaves the garage immediately. Just before Dennis rings the doorbell again, he sees Wilson heading toward the front door, so he runs away. As Wilson then hits the doorbell, the thumbtack hurts him, and Polly and Mickey pour water and flour on him. Wilson looks disappointed by this, and as he heads home, his wife laughs at him.
He's only a boy, huh?
Elsewhere, Sam continues going to different houses to steal whatever he can find. Interestingly, no one still sees him, and he continues moving around to steal things. The next day, Dennis takes a sorry card to Wilson's house to apologize for shooting paint into the barbecue grill. Martha says that her husband is still asleep, and Dennis asks when he'll wake up. Martha says he'll be up soon because he's having his picture taken in a few minutes. Dennis asks what it's for, and Martha says that Wilson is being honored for his garden. Dennis then asks if he can go to Wilson's room to drop the card. Martha says he can do that as long as he promises not to disturb Wilson. Dennis says he'll go in quietly, and he thanks Martha by calling her the nicest person in the neighborhood. After Dennis drops the note inside Wilson's bathroom, he sees Wilson's fake teeth and plays with them. Unfortunately, the two front teeth fall down the sinkhole, and Dennis looks disappointed by this. He then heads back to his house and finds a peppermint gum, which he uses to replace the missing teeth. After a while, the photographer arrives to take Wilson's picture. Wilson hurriedly takes his teeth from the bathroom and heads outside for the photo. As he then smiles, Martha sees the gum used to replace his two front teeth, and she looks shocked. The photo still gets taken, but the photographer looks confused when he sees Wilson's teeth. Elsewhere, the town's chief of police sees Sam hanging around a playground where he plans to steal a purse. The chief says he hasn't seen Sam around before and that he needs to leave the town.
What are you up to, buddy?
Sam tries to joke about it, but the chief insists that he needs to leave. As Sam then walks away from the playground, it turns out that he had already stolen the purse before he even started talking to the chief. Meanwhile, one of Alice's colleagues at work says she just heard that Alice doesn't want to travel to Oklahoma for a company trip. Alice says she just wants the trip to be rescheduled because her husband also has a work trip planned for the same date. She adds that she has to stay back because there's no one to take care of her son. Alice's colleague doesn't seem to care about this, and she mentions that if Alice skips the trip, she'll be forced to cover up for her. Alice doesn't know what else to say, but the lady tells her to get ready for the trip because she can't cover up for anyone. Alice looks disappointed by this, and she starts wondering if there'll be a babysitter to stay with Dennis. When she gets home, she and Henry call all the babysitters they know, but none of them agree to come over because they know that Dennis is troublesome. Henry and Alice are then left with Martha and Wilson, and they start wondering if they should call their neighbors. The next day, Henry and Alice bring Dennis to Wilson's house and thank Martha for agreeing to babysit Dennis until they're back from their work trip. Martha says it's not a problem, but Wilson doesn't seem happy about the arrangement because he hasn't forgotten what Dennis did to his teeth. Alice then tells Dennis to stay out of trouble.
Be a good boy, okay?
And Henry also warns his son not to disturb or bother Wilson. Dennis says he won't do that, and his parents eventually leave. After this, Martha tells Wilson to help Dennis carry his suitcase to the guest room, but he says he can't do it. Martha tells him to stop being stubborn, and as she enters the house, Dennis asks if Wilson knows why he's not crying, despite the fact that his parents are going on a trip. Wilson doesn't seem bothered by this, but Dennis mentions that it's because if his parents aren't around, the only other person he wants to be around is Wilson. Wilson says he's not moved by this, and he eventually carries the suitcase inside. Later that night, Dennis sees Wilson looking at his antique gold coin collection. He then asks if it's a pirate's gold, but Wilson says it isn't. Dennis also asks if it's valuable, and Wilson says it is. After this, Dennis asks if that's why Wilson keeps it in a safe, and he says it is. As Dennis asks why Wilson's safe looks like books, Wilson doesn't seem to get why he has many questions. Dennis says it's normal because he's a kid, and Wilson mentions that the safe is built like that to ensure that if a thief comes in, he won't be able to recognize it. Dennis then asks for the combination to the lock, but Wilson says he can't tell him.
You're the last person in the world I tell that to.
Dennis asks if he writes it down somewhere, but Wilson says it's in his head. Dennis then mentions that he's sure Wilson's combination is his address, because he has a friend who uses something similar for his bicycle lock. Wilson looks shocked because Dennis is right, but he doesn't say anything about it. Shortly after, Dennis takes his bath and splashes some water on the floor. He then sees Wilson's nasal spray and plays around with it. As he notices that the bottle is now empty, he quickly replaces the liquid inside with Wilson's mouthwash. He then pours a toilet cleaner into the mouthwash bottle. After he leaves the bathroom, Martha tucks him into bed and asks if he wants her to recite her favorite poem to him. Dennis says he doesn't mind, and she immediately starts reciting the poem. Shortly after, Wilson slips in the bathroom after accidentally stepping on the wet floor. He looks pissed because he knows that Dennis is responsible for making the floor wet, but he just stands up to take out his mouthwash. As he pours some into his mouth, he realizes that it tastes weird, and he spits it out immediately. Wilson doesn't seem to get this, but as he also uses his nasal spray, he feels a burning sensation in his nose and quickly dips his face into some water. Shortly after, Wilson tells Martha about the things Dennis did in the bathroom, but she doesn't believe this. She then tells Wilson about how she felt good when she recited the poem to Dennis. As she says that she would have been a good mother, Wilson doesn't seem to care about this.
And I would have made a swell fireman.
And Martha stands up from the bed. Wilson looks confused by this, but Martha says she's going down to make a cup of coffee for herself. Wilson asks if she's leaving because of their conversation regarding children, but Martha says it's not about that. She then mentions that it's about how she can't tell him something even when she feels good about it. Meanwhile, Dennis sees his dog outside the window, and he decides to bring him inside. Shortly after, Wilson goes down to apologize to Martha for what he did. Interestingly, Dennis's dog happens to be on the chair in the living room, and as Wilson sees its hair, he assumes that it's Martha. As he then says sorry and mentions that he would have also loved to have kids, Martha shows up and sees him patting a dog. Wilson looks shocked to see her, and he realizes that he has been talking to a dog. After this, he kicks the dog out of the house and goes back to bed. The next morning, while Wilson is trying to pick up some things in the attic, Dennis accidentally pours some mothballs on the ground. Wilson eventually slips when he steps on them, and as Dennis also unknowingly releases the boat tied to the ceiling, a couple of things inside it fall on the old man. Dennis realizes that Wilson is angry about this, and he says that he's going to head out to play. Shortly after, Alice calls Martha to inform her that her flight has been delayed due to bad weather.
Yeah, there's a terrible storm.
She says she knows that Martha and Wilson's party is tonight and that she feels bad for leaving them with Dennis for another day. Martha says it's not a problem, but Alice wonders what Wilson might say. As Martha then tells Wilson that Dennis will have to stay with them for another day, he looks pissed and says that he won't let that happen because he doesn't want anything to ruin his big day. Martha says it's not Alice's fault that she can't come back early and that Wilson has to stop being a bad neighbor. Elsewhere, Dennis, Joey, and Margaret finish working on their treehouse. As Dennis then returns to Wilson's house, Sam sees him and looks at him strangely. Shortly after, Dennis gets dressed for Wilson's party, and Wilson warns him to behave well. Later that night, Dennis suddenly gets the urge to press the garage door button, and as he does this, he accidentally knocks down all the food at the party. He looks shocked by this, but still remains calm because he doesn't want to disturb Wilson while he's giving his speech. When Wilson finishes up with the speech, he sees the scattered food on the ground and looks disgusted because he knows that Dennis is responsible for it. After this, Dennis gets sent to his room, and he sees everyone sitting outside and waiting for Wilson's plant to open and wither. Interestingly, Sam has already broken into the house, and while looking for what to steal, he sees Wilson's safe and takes all the gold coins. On his way out, one of the gold coins drops on the floor, and as Dennis hears this, he looks confused. He then goes out of his room and realizes that someone has tampered with Wilson's safe. Almost immediately, he heads out to tell Wilson that someone just robbed robbed him. As everyone looks at him, the plant opens up and dies, and they all miss out on watching it live. Wilson looks disappointed by this.
40 years down the drain.
And as he's about to head inside, he calls Dennis a pest and a menace. He adds that Dennis has taken something important away from him, and that he never wants to see him again. Dennis looks sad when he hears this, and as Wilson heads inside, he takes his bike and leaves the neighborhood. Shortly after, Alice arrives home and learns that Dennis is missing. She then calls Joey's mom to ask if Joey has seen Dennis. Joey says he hasn't, and Alice looks disappointed. Just then, Wilson remembers the things he said to Dennis, and as he feels guilty for Dennis's disappearance, he sets out to look for him. A couple of people in the neighborhood also leave their houses to begin a search for Dennis. Meanwhile, Dennis rides his bike and runs into Sam on the way. Sam then takes him away and says that Dennis will be his hostage. Dennis doesn't know what this means, and he says that he can stay with Sam for the night because he has to go to church the next day. Sam says he can't go to church because they're jumping on the next train out of town. Dennis looks surprised by this, and he tells Sam that they'll have to go back to his house to inform his parents and pack a few things. As Sam struggles to open a can of beans, which he plans to cook for them, he gets frustrated by Dennis's constant talking. Dennis then asks what a hostage has to do.
What does a hostage have to do?
And Sam says he doesn't have to do anything. Dennis looks confused by this, and he asks why Sam needs him. Sam then says he might need Dennis when the cops show up. Dennis asks if he'll need a gun, but Sam says he doesn't. Dennis then mentions that he has a slingshot, and that he can show Sam how good he is with it. Sam just ignores him, but Dennis fires a stone with his slingshot. Interestingly, the stone bounces off something and ends up hitting Sam's head. As Sam gets hurt, Dennis plays with the firewood and accidentally throws a small burning piece of wood into Sam's pants. Sam suddenly feels the heat and jumps into a pool of water to put out the fire. After he gets back out, he says that he'll have to tie Dennis up. As he does this, Dennis says he's doing it the wrong way, and that many people have tried and failed to tie him up in the past. Sam seems confused by this, and he asks Dennis how to go about it. Dennis then takes the rope and ties Sam up to show him how it's done. When he's through, he also cuffs Sam's hands and mentions that if he's tied up like that, he won't be able to escape. Dennis then asks for the key to the cuffs, and Sam says it's in his bag. As he finds it, he accidentally trips over himself, and the key falls into the pot of beans. Dennis looks disappointed by this, but he mentions that Sam will have to eat the beans until he finds the key. Sam seems pissed by this, but Dennis says it's the only way they'll be able to get the key. Sam still doesn't like this idea, but Dennis starts filling his mouth with the beans.
Plus, you have to eat your dinner.
After a while, Dennis sees that the key isn't inside the pot, and he mentions that Sam has likely swallowed it. As he says that it might take a while to get it back, Sam looks disappointed. Shortly after, Dennis goes to get a piece of wood for the fire, and Sam gets a chance to take his knife. As he then picks it up, he cuts the rope, but before he can stand up, Dennis accidentally throws the firewood on his head. Sam passes out immediately, and Dennis goes to check up on him. He then says that he needs to find something to cover Sam's body so that he won't get cold. As he checks Sam's bag, he finds a blanket and covers Sam with it. However, he's unaware that the blanket has caught fire. After this, he checks the bag again and sees a purse inside. As he wonders what Sam is doing with it, Sam's clothes get caught up in the fire, and Dennis tries to help him. Sam eventually jumps into the nearby river to cool himself, and as he almost drowns, Dennis saves him by giving him one end of a rope and throwing the other end onto a metal bar near the train tracks. As Sam gets back up, he picks up his knife and tries to attack Dennis, who has just seen Wilson's gold coins inside Sam's bag.
This is Mr. Wilson's car.
Sam then confirms that he's a thief, but before he can hurt Dennis, a train passes by and accidentally pulls the rope still attached to Sam's body. Following this, he gets pulled up before he lands back in the water and gets stabbed in the butt with his own knife. The next morning, Dennis drags Sam back to his neighborhood, and as Wilson sees him, he looks happy. After Dennis hugs Wilson, he also sees his parents and goes to meet them. Almost immediately, the cops arrive arrive at the scene and arrest Sam. Before he's taken away, Dennis gives him his knife and says that he almost forgot it. As Sam then tries to stab him, the police chief accidentally closes the door on his hand, and he ends up dropping the knife into the storm drain. Later that night, Dennis's parents sit with Wilson and Martha while he tries to roast his marshmallow. Alice then mentions that she won't have to travel a lot anymore because her company has set up a project for her to handle in the town. She says it will also have a daycare center and that she'll be able to take Dennis to work. Wilson says she doesn't need to do that because he and Martha can take care of Dennis. Martha says they would really love to do that, but Henry mentions that he doesn't want Dennis to bother them anymore.
No.
No, I don't think so.
Wilson says that Dennis is just a kid and that adults just have to play by their rules sometimes. Almost immediately, Dennis accidentally sets off his flaming marshmallow to land on Wilson's forehead, and he looks shocked by this. After unintentionally causing a lot of trouble in his neighborhood, Dennis gets labeled a menace. He eventually crashes his neighbor's special garden party, and Wilson angrily says that he never wants to see him again. Dennis looks disappointed by this, and as he leaves the neighborhood, he gets kidnapped by Sam. Dennis seems quite innocent and doesn't know that he has been kidnapped, but his usual chaotic and curious nature ends up working in his favor. As he then heads back to the neighborhood, Wilson looks happy to see Dennis, and he eventually admits that he has always been too hard on his young neighbor. In this story, we learn that even though kids can sometimes make mistakes, it doesn't mean they're bad, and it's actually because they're just being kids.